بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقل رب أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب أن يحضرون. إذا جاء أحدهم الموت قال رب ارجعون لعلي أعمل صالحا فيما تركت كلا إنها كلمة هو قائلها ومن ورائهم برزخ إلى يوم يبعثون. فإذا نفخ في الصور فلا أنساب بينهم يومئذ ولا يتساءلون. فمن ثقلت موازينه فأولئك هم المفلحون. ومن خفت موازينه فأولئك الذين خسروا أنفسهم في جهنم خالدون. تلفح وجوههم النار وهم فيها كالحون. ألم تكن آياتي تتلى عليكم فكنتم بها تكذبون. قالوا ربنا غلبت علينا شقوتنا وكنا قوما ضالين. ربنا أخرجنا منها فإن عدنا فإنا ظالمون. قال اخسئوا فيها ولا تكلمون إنه كان فريق من عبادي يقولون ربنا آمنا فاغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. فاتخذتموهم سخريا حتى أنسوكم ذكري وكنتم منهم تضحكون. إني جزيتهم اليوم بما صبروا أنهم هم الفائزون. قال كم لبثتم في الأرض عدد سنين قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم فاسأل العادين قال إن لبثتم إلا قليلا. قال إن لبثتم إلا قليلا لو أنكم كنتم تعلمون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. فتعالى الله فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدع مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به ومن يدع مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. صدق الله العظيم.
پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ سکینہ، للہ جہاں بھی ہو چلی آؤ سکینہ. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ سکینہ، میں صبح سے تا عصر تڑپتی ہی رہی ہوں، میں صبح سے تا عصر تڑپتی ہی رہی ہوں. آ جاؤ خدا کے لیے آ جاؤ سکینہ. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ سکینہ، یا مجھ کو صدا دو کہ میں لینے تمہیں پہنچوں، یا مجھ کو صدا دو کہ میں لینے تمہیں پہنچوں، یا خود میرے آواز پر آ جاؤ سکینہ. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ سکینہ، قاسم ہے نہ اکبر ہے نہ باس دلاور، قاسم ہے نہ اکبر ہے نہ باس دلاور، اب کون تمہیں ڈھونڈنے پر جائے سکینہ. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ سکینہ. رات آ گئے بھوکی بھی ہو پیاسی بھی میری جان، رات آ گئے بھوکی بھی ہو پیاسی بھی میری جان، ایسا نہ ہو تھک کر کہیں سو جاؤ سکینہ. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ سکینہ. بھیا نے تمہیں میری حفاظت میں دیا تھا، بھیا نے تمہیں میری حفاظت میں دیا تھا، بھابھی سے تو شرمندہ نہ کر واؤ سکینہ. زینب کی صدا تھی کہ نہ تڑ پاؤ सकीना मैदान में तो बेसर कहीं है लाशें मेरी बची मैदान में तो बेसर के हैं लाशें मेरे बची शब में ना उन्हें देख के डर जाओ सकीना ज़ैनब की सदा थी कहना तड़ पाओ सकीना और मोहम्मद व मोहम्मद
Before we call Shaykh Arif again, please can we ask you to fill up the spaces at the front, please. Please recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
رحم الله رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة الرحمن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين وَإِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. I just want to say a few words as we get into the heart-wrenching narrations of this night, that sufferings are a part of human life. We will suffer in one way or another. Whether we are in a good state financially and health-wise, or we are in not such a good state, sufferings are a concomitant of our lives. Together with physical ailments and physical poverty, there are psychological challenges and emotional challenges. And the purpose of these sufferings is for us to grow through them, to understand that we were never meant to be here on this earth eternally. We have come here for a few years. There is an appointed time. God can vary it if He so wishes. Certain times are appointed and they are not moved forward or backward. In this phase in which we are here, our task at hand is to recognize ourselves and our God. Sufferings are a means for us to be purged of what is not really us, of a false identity. We are not, in essence, people with these bodies. The bodies will grow old, they will become sick. They are supposed to leave us even before we die, in order to impress upon us that we are not these bodies. We are not our communities around us. Each one of them is being taken away slowly and gradually as everything is being renewed. We are here today. You will not see us here for a long time. We will be gone. And then it will be your turn, O young ones who are here today, to show that none of us belong here and none of us belong to each other. Our name, our prestige is not ours. Our wealth, our belonging, they are not ours. The difference between Imam Hussein and those who killed him was just one, that Imam Hussein, with his beloved companions and family, understood that they belong to Allah. Those who were killing him in the name of God did not realize that there is a true life that is awaiting. I will say even the paradise is not where we belong. We belong much, much further than paradise. And therefore, not only are we to relieve ourselves through suffering of the attachment of this world, but we are to relieve ourselves of the attachment of the next world as well. I think there should come a point in our lives, the Abrahamic point, which unfortunately does not appear to come in this humble slave's life, that when he is thrown into the pits of fire, he cares not for burning. There should come that point where the soul is absolved of the fear of burning as well, in the love of the beloved. It is said in a hadith that I read somewhere, that on the day of Qiyamah, God will say to sons of Adam, that if indeed you claim that you love me, then go and fall into the fire. That would be the most testing time as to who has that core love and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sufferings are to be used positively. When we feel pain, this pain is to be handed over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hussein says it, "Oh Allah, it is happening in front of you. That is what makes it bearable for me." How he converts this pain into godliness and how he absolves himself of all. Abraham trembled when he left Hajara and Ismail in that wilderness, and it was the biggest test for Abraham. This is the Abraham of Karbala. Look at how he leaves his family behind. We find this poetry attributed to him, "O Lord, I have chosen to make my little daughter an orphan in order that I may see you. I have abandoned all of them, O Lord, in order to come to you. If the blades were to shred me into pieces, O Lord, this heart shall not yearn other than you." How wonderful are these sentiments amidst the tribulations that befall his heart. Hamid ibn Muslim says, and these are the things that broke Hussein on that day. He said, as he bade farewell to his family and walked slowly towards his steed, the winds blew, and I saw not only his garment but his beard move from one direction to another. In the midst of all of this, I saw a little girl of 3 or 4 emerge from the tent behind him. With trembling legs, she walked slowly towards Hussein, and she pulled at the hem of his garment. He looked behind, and she said, "Ya Abata, O father, unzur ilayya. Look at me, I die of thirst." Tears poured from his eyes as he said, "Saqakillah ya bunayya. May Allah quench your thirst, O child." This is the pain this great man bears upon his chest. And he leaves it to Allah and goes forth. Something that we need to take note of here is that it was very, very difficult for Hussein to lose his Akbar, Abbas, Asghar. But Hussein, with all this pain, tastes martyrdom. What of the women who have lost their Hussein, Abbas, Akbar and Asghar? Who have not been blessed with death, but who have been kept alive, who are going to see their heads raised on the ends of spears, who are going to see the head of Hussein being placed in a tray, and the oppressive person poking at his face and saying, "Hussein, you had a cheerful face." And then she is asked, "Oh Zainab, what do you say of the decree of God?" And she says at that point, "I have not seen but goodness prevail." The pain that they incurred on that day is a pain that cannot be expressed. But the way in which they bear this pain and the way they make this pain a means of proximity to God, is something from which we need to learn. You know the state of Zainab, taunting Aun and Muhammad, shall you value your lives beyond the life of my Hussein? You find Zainab running after him and saying to him, let me behold your face one last time. You find Zainab upon the hill. This is the same Zainab that approaches the headless body of her brother that has been trampled and every bone has been broken. At that point she says, "Oh Allah, accept this offering from us." The way in which she is refined through the tribulations. Now let us see from the eyes of Zainab what she has seen as her brother breathes his last. Zuljana runs towards the tents as Zainab runs, neighing out aloud. Zainab says to Hussein's older daughter Sakina, "It is the steed of your father. Let us see what news he brings." When they come out of the tent, Sakina looks at the state of the steed. She says, "Oh Zuljana, why has your saddle turned? Why does your mane drip of the blood of my father? Why are the reins broken? Oh Zuljana, where have you left my father?" Zuljana, did they give him a drop of water? Or did they behead him upon the burning thirst? The cry fills the sky, Hussein has been slain. They plunder his body. After plundering his body, they make way towards the tents. Their entry into the tents has been described, that it was so ferocious that several little children were trampled beneath their feet and they lost their lives. Hussein's body is then mutilated beneath the hooves of 4 horses. Hamid ibn Muslim says that Umar ibn Sa'ad gives orders, take the women and bring them ready for captivity. When they come, the women refuse to come out of the tent. Umar ibn Sa'ad is summoned. "Zainab, come out of the tent or we shall set it alight." She refuses to come out. "Do you not know your brother is no longer alive? You have no defenders." He says, "In that case, give us our outer garments for us to cover ourselves with." He said, "Today you shall come with us as a captive, not the daughter of Ali." When she refuses to come, they set the tents ablaze. Hamid ibn Muslim describes, "What I saw appeared as if a rosary was broken and the beads were being scattered upon the dust. I saw little children and women fleeing, walking over thorns, getting struck by rocks, falling over bodies. In the midst of all of this, I see a young child. Her garments have caught fire. I go near to her. She says, 'Oh man, I have been chastised enough. Leave me alone for the sake of Allah.' I saw her face had been slapped and I saw blood pouring from her earlobes. I said, 'I come as a friend.' I put out the fire. She said, 'Where is my father?' I said, 'Oh child, your father lies in that direction.' Zainab flees from the tent. An enemy chases her. and then hits her upon the back with the knot of his spear. She falls upon her face. When she regains consciousness, she sees Hussein's older daughter ahead of her. She awakens the child. She said, "Oh aunt, do you have a garment with which I may cover my head?" "Oh child, your aunt is as deprived of a veil as you are. Let us take news of your ailing brother." When they come back, Sayyidul Sajideen lies upon his face. He cries and says, "Oh aunt, they called out to me as the whips were unleashed upon their backs. Everything was being taken from them, but I could not move. Ah, for the helplessness." She comforts him. And general from the army says that when the final tent was set alight, I saw a woman with a lofty stature come out of the tent, in desperation looking towards the right and the left and going back into the tent. She did this several times. I went to her. I said, "O maid of God, it is no longer safe for you to re-enter that tent." She said, "Oh man, I have an ailing son in the tent. He is unable to move." Then I saw her carrying her son upon her shoulders and bringing him out of the tent. Zainab and Kulthum gather the orphans and the children, but nowhere is Sakina to be found. They go out looking for Sakina. As they advance, they see two little children in the embrace of each other. When they try to awaken the children, they realize that they have died and lost their lives from excessive thirst and fear, and possibly from the attacks of the horses. They look for Sakina. Sakina is not to be found. Zainab may have looked towards the Alqama and cried out, "O Abbas, has your Sakina come to you?" There is silence, no response. She looks towards Ali Akbar. "Has your sister come to you?" There is no response. Having given the promise to Hussein that she will look after her little child, his little child, she is filled with anguish. She goes off in a direction, crying out, "Oh Sakina, call on to me." She comes to a headless body and she finds little Sakina in its embrace. She awakens Sakina. "Remove me not from the body of my father, O aunt. But, O child, it is a body without a head. How did you know it is the body of your father?" She said, "O aunt, when my face was slapped, when my earrings were snatched, when my garments caught fire, I called out, 'O father, why have you abandoned your Sakina on such a night?' I ran towards this direction, and something pulled me to this body, and I know it is the body of my father." Zainab comforts Sakina. She gathers the women and the children. They are crying and lamenting and complaining to Zainab of what has befallen them. She says to them, "Sleep around this burning tent. I shall keep guard on this night." Umar ibn Sa'ad learned that two children had died out of thirst. He sends the wife of Hur with some water to the camp of Hussein. As Hur's wife nears, Zainab says to Kulsum, "It is the wife of Hur who approaches us." As she comes near, Zainab says, "Great, is a tribulation on the loss of Hur. You come at a time when we have nothing to offer to you, O maid of God. May 1,000 Hur be sacrificed for you, dear lady. I bring some water for you to quench your thirst. Zainab looks at the water and she remembers her brother. And she says, wow, Sayyidina. Zakirin, read. Zainab called on to the little child of Hussein. She said, Sakina, drink some water. The child is but 3 or 4. She says, oh aunt, has my uncle Abbas come back from the Euphrates? ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم حسين.
یہ شام غریبہ ہے دریا کی روانی ہے. یہ شام غریبہ ہے دریا کی روانی ہے. یہ شام غریبہ ہے. اصغر تیرے لاشے کو ماں بن کے زمین رکھے. اصغر تیرے لاشے کو ماں بن کے زمین رکھے. اجڑی ہوئی گودی کی ہے اجڑی ہوئی گودی کی معصوم نشانی ہے. یہ شام غریب دریا کی روانی ہے. یہ شام ہوں کیسے رکے لوگوں اکبر کا جوانی میں. ہوں کیسے رکے لوگوں اکبر کا جوانی میں. یہ خون نیا لیکن ہے خون نیا لیکن برچی تو پرانی ہے. یہ شام غریبہ ہے دریا کی روانی ہے. یہ معلوم نہ تھا شہ کو خود اپنے ہی ہاتھوں سے. معلوم نہ تھا شہ کو خود اپنے ہی ہاتھوں سے. شبر کی نشانی بھی ہے شبر کی نشانی بھی مٹی میں ملانی ہے. یہ شام غریبہ ہے دریا کی روانی ہے. شبیر کو خنجر سے زیادہ اذیت ہے. شبیر کو خنجر سے زیادہ اذیت ہے. تکلیف جو زندہ میں ہے تکلیف جو زندہ میں بچی کو اٹھانی ہے. یہ شام دریا کی ہر غم کو بلا دیں گے ہر یاد مٹا دیں گے. ہر غم کو بلا دیں گے ہر یاد مٹا دیں گے. زہرا تیرے بچوں کی ہے زہرا تیرے بچوں کی بس یاد منانی ہے. یہ شام غریبہ ہے دریا کی روانی ہے. یہ شام غریبہ ہے. توجہ ہے زیارت. السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ. السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین.
السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. All together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء وبعيد المدى، السلطان العرب والعجام، مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان، قمر الليل وشمس النهار. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.